Welcome to High Tech Next, the High Tech Campus Conference of the Year. Okay, I think we deserve an applause. Okay. So during our last edition in 2019, we presented our plan to become a leading tech hub by 2030. A hub with the same global prominence as San Francisco, Boston and Berlin. And 3 years later, we are accelerating towards that goal. Because this campus is thriving because of innovators like you. And today, we will share insights on valuable technologies and innovations that will help us solve global challenges. For example, with a keynote by the CEO of Signify, Rondolat, about the innovation challenges of a company like Signify. Or what about the Metaverse and Web3? What exactly is it, and what are the business opportunities? So for the full program, you have a badge and you can turn it around. And then you can see the complete program also here in the auditorium. And you also have a small card where you can see all the demos that are demonstrated here in the hall of the conference center, because we have 25 demos on themes such as sustainability, photonics, emerging tech, and they look beautiful. So I think they deserve a big applause too. So, some important notes. There is a hashtag. So if you want to use it, High Tech Next. We made it easy. And so if you want to post anything about the keynote speakers or about the demos, please use it and we'll try to like as many as possible. And there's also a photographer. Lieke, maybe you can wave. She's making pictures. If you do not want to be in a picture, please find her or one of my colleagues in the conference center and we will take it into account. So, it's time to officially start the event. But you know, it was just lunchtime. Who knows the after-dinner dip? Yeah, so I think a warming up will do us some good, right? But I wouldn't want to do it alone. So I asked a special person to come and help us with this. The Ecosystem Thinking Institute is a non-profit that helps people and organizations to embrace open innovation, a theme that we really like. And they do it in a fun and inspiring way. And especially for us, they also do warm-ups. So Margot Nijkamp should have been here, but due to personal reasons, she is not. But she did send a wonderful replacement. But I think he needs a little bit more encouragement. So give a big applause to Rick Wielens.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, what a fantastic opportunity to talk here and to do an introduction and to do a warm-up. Hey, Ingelou,
yeah.
There's something interesting because I wanted to share my route to come here after 25 years of working onto this stage. And there are actually three things which I have in common with Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, number one is I also worked at headquarters at Philips Lighting, but that was in the city center of Eindhoven. I also worked at the building 48, but that was in 2007. Does anybody remember what building 8 looked like in 2007, 2008? Yeah.
I see a few hands.
A bit different than what it looks today. Yeah, you were there too. And then I also have been a CEO for a number of organizations, but my title is a bit different compared to what Eric is doing because I was the Chief Everything Officer, because that's typical for a startup if you're in a startup environment, so that was me. Hey, I have some challenging questions because we've got a super intelligent crowd, and to do the warm-up, I want to learn, and you need to stand up.
Questions, yes.
Who's a cat person? Are there any cat persons here in the room? No, stand up.
Stand up if you're a cat person.
Stand up if you're a cat person, because we need to see you. We need to see. Can you see the cat persons? Can you see the cat persons? Okay, take a good look. Now I want to have the dog persons. So yeah. Can you stand up? Oh, some people stay standing. Interesting.
There's so many dog people.
Oh, there we go. There's a lot more dog persons in the High Tech Campus than cat persons. That's also an interesting conclusion.
Interesting.
All right. Let's see. Who is in favor of summer holidays over winter holidays? Who likes summer holidays more than winter holidays?
Who likes holiday?
Oh, yeah. Holidays. Everybody stands up. Everybody stands up. Excellent.
Who likes holidays?
We need some questions to get everybody standing up, right? To get everybody engaging.
We have to get everyone warm. Okay.
Who is more into skiing? Who loves the winter sports?
I do see different people.
I see people eating from two sides. They're doing both. They're doing summer holidays and winter holidays. They're liking them both. Excellent. Who's more an active sports person in terms of activity? Who loves to do sports as one of the... Oh, there you go. Some people never get up, sit down again haircut. Yeah. There you go. Do we have any artists here in the room? People that paint, sculpture, that create stuff?
Yeah, creative.
Yeah? Well, I know you all create because you're on the High Tech Campus, but do you creators here? Super. Some hobby chefs here in the room? Some hobby chefs? There you are. I'm a hobby chef. That's where the speaker comes from, I guess. Musicians. Can we start a band here on the campus? We used to have the fanfare, the harmonie from Philips. That's not enough, but it's great to have some musicians here in the room. Thank you. Only if you're comfortable to do this, because that's one step further. Is there anybody who's taking care of somebody who's ill?
You can also raise your hand now.
You can raise your hand. You don't have to stand up. Yeah? Is there anybody who is taking care of their parents, for instance? Mantelzorg? I see the same hand. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. Is there anybody who is a convinced eco-tourist? Oh, not so many here. Okay,
no
that's
one.
Interesting.
No
it made sense with all the winter sports and summer holidays going on. So, why do we do this? Besides getting you warmed up, is because we're in an innovation environment, and innovation today is about collaboration. And if you collaborate, the thing is, it's not companies that collaborate together, it's people. It's people collaborating with other people. So if you want to connect to other people, you want to create and find common ground. And I hope you saw some colleagues standing up, go, you're a dog person, seriously? Right, so create some common ground to facilitate and to improve the way, how, and what you do in terms of working together. This is the PhD from Margot, actually. So it's a dangerous crowd to do PhD kind of example. This is about working together in innovation. So two people try to work together, but they're on their island. 1 and 1 is less than 1. Two people working together, but they're separate and working on the same problem, but they're not looking at each other, they're not exchanging anything. It's 1 and 1 is 1. 1 and 1 is 2. Two people that are doing something together, but there's no real openness and exchange. And then 1 and 1 is more than 3 is when there is common ground. And when people have something that makes them special and contributing to the whole picture. So obviously we translated this for you into the high-tech kind of environment that we're in. So we've got insulators, we've got semi-insulators, semiconductors, but I think this is a full room of superconductors, right? Because that's what we need. There's some doubt in the room, okay. So this is the translation table that we've made to help you translate, let's say, the human side and technology side, and that we keep talking about the same thing. So we're talking about communication. Is this thing on? On the human side, is it cabled or is it wireless? Is signal processing, a lot of signal processing going on, obviously. I'm getting mixed signals over here, or are we talking analog or digital? Sensor and actuators, hypersensitive, or are we talking biochemical thermal? Memory, selective, to say the least, and RAM or terabytes. So here's the translation table that I want to leave you with, and have a great session today. Thank you for sharing and for being here today.
And thank you for warming us up.
Yeah,
a very big applause. Rick Wielens, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Are we warmed up? Yes, okay, good. So then it's time for our first keynote speaker. From the dawn of electric light, Signify has been a pioneer in the lighting industry. With almost 80,000 patents and 100 partnerships, the company, formerly known as Philips Lighting, aims to use light to solve global challenges, such as climate change. Since 2016, the French-Italian Rondolat has been their CEO. Before, he was Executive Vice President and CEO at Philips Lighting, and before that, he worked in executive positions at Schneider Electric, for example, in China and France. And today, he will share with us the innovation challenge of Signify. So I think we're going to give him a very big applause.
Well, good afternoon to all of you. So I was asked to come and give 15 minutes and then 15 minutes of question, just to talk to you about the ex-Philips Lighting. Now we are called Signify. We had to change the name of the company, and now we are fully independent and listed on the AEX. And our story is a story of transformation that could not have been possible without innovation. So if you look at the past 10 years, the company was 100% or 96% selling conventional lighting, and we sell today 90% of LED, meaning that there's no product that we sell today which is common versus what we were selling some 5 to 6 years ago. The products have changed completely. The business models have changed completely because we were only selling products. Today we are selling products, we are selling systems, and we are selling services. At the same time, if you go back 10 years ago, we were 100% dependent on the conventional part of the business for the profit, and we're 150% dependent on the conventional business for the cash, meaning that the other business were cash negative. Today, 90% of the profit and the cash are coming from the digital divisions. But you don't do a transformation of that nature if there's no innovation. I'm very proud and happy to be here because this is where the company was born. We have probably on that campus a brain power which is the strongest one in the lighting industry worldwide. I don't want to sound complacent or arrogant. I believe this is true. This is where it truly happens for us. And it all started with, a serial innovations that were more based on conventional. So if you remember conventional, it's incandescence, or it's fluorescent, or it is high intensity discharge lamps. So basically what you had to do, you had to burn something to emit light. So you were burning a solid or you were burning a gas, and that would emit light. And there were a lot of innovation because we started with a famous filament of tungsten, and then we evolved into halogen, then we went to fluorescent, compact fluorescent, HID, and so on. But it was always the same thing, but innovating. Now, when you burn something, there are two consequences. You need energy, and when there's nothing to burn anymore, you are at the end of life. Can you imagine that at one stage, instead of burning something, we would just need to excite an electronic component to emit light? And that's the start of a fundamental journey of transformation, fundamentally backed up by innovation. So what's the advantage when you have to excite an electronic component? Well, first, you need much less energy, and it lasts longer. So very basic comparison, incandescent versus LED. 100 is the consumption of incandescent. 6 is the consumption of LED. And today it is 3, because we have just brought to the market a few quarters ago a new LED lamp that is consuming 50% less than existing LED lamps on the market. So we go from 100 to 3. At the same time, we go from 1 year of lifetime to 10 years. But that's not the end of it, because when you have an electronic component that can be excited, at the end of the day, you can also connect remotely. So if you go back 10 to 15 years ago, why did you need lighting for? Very simply to give you light. People didn't even understand the color temperature or the quality of light. It was fairly commoditized. LED not only decommoditized the business, but allowed us to do something else, to connect light and give to light a different purpose and a different meaning. So let me give you examples. Before we had to emit light, and light was a factor of life because you need light to live, especially at night or indoors. Can you imagine that light now is giving you light and a better quality of light because it will adapt to whatever type of light you need depending on what you're doing and the time of the day. Light will bring to you also a lot of savings in terms of energy saving. 50%, and if you connect it, you can go up to 80%. There is no other industry in the world, there is absolutely no other technology that is saving as much in such a simple fashion with such a return on investment. But let me now go a bit further, because light is now doing things that it never did before. Everything being based on fundamental innovation. Do you know that light can help you to optimize your shop floor or your workspace? So we have customers that have an indication permanently in their office of the occupation. And that is done by the lighting system. Why? Because now, when we sell a fixture, we sell not only the light, but we sell also the sensors that are monitoring what is happening in the space. We also have the possibility for people to take their phone, bring the phone to the light, and then take the control of the lighting environment from their phone. Light is communicating. In warehouses, we can give to warehouse owners permanently, with any level of integration, on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, what is the usage of the shop floor. And you know what? It's very important for people in warehouses, because if they don't utilize efficiently their floor space, they need to buy more floor space. So it costs them a lot of money, and we use more resources of the planet. Now let's go one level further. So we've talked about quality of light, we talked about energy efficiency, we talked about optimizing the resources. What about people? Now we're providing light, which is helping the people to be more productive and to be safer. We have customers today who are buying full LED connected lighting system for one purpose: limiting the number of accidents. Why? Because we are animals of contrast. We get alerted when there is a contrast, when we change the intensity of the light. So you can imagine, and we can go back to the idea of the warehouse. You have a warehouse, nobody is in the alley, the light is dimmed down. You save energy. When people are coming and working in the alley, the light is dimmed up. That contrast alerts people, diminish the number of accidents, while at the same time there is more light, they can see better and they're less tired. So from a different era where the light was fixed, it was there, it would die after a year, you had to climb up and change it. Now you have a light which follows what you do on a daily basis. And I can tell you that the type of light is different, whether you are coming in the morning at work or whether you are leaving late in the afternoon. This is what we call the circadian rhythm, and we also adapt our lights to that. So let's go from a crazy story of innovation, which is our journey. When we're burning something, we're not burning anything anymore. We're not only providing light, we provide energy efficiency, we provide workspace optimization, and also health and well-being and productivity. What is our main difficulty? It's not only the innovation piece, because we had to invest in a lot of different technologies, far more than ever, because we had to do controls, we had to do software, we had to bring interfaces that would match together. So we're not anymore selling a light source or a fixture. We're selling a full systems, which is deep in technology. So we could do that, and our big challenge is to be able to educate and to tell to people that light doesn't only bring light, it does much more than that. Now let's go one step further. And let's talk about other innovations that we are developing, which are what we call our Horizon 3. When you do innovation, and when we do innovation, we think on a 4-horizon type of time scale. Horizon 0 are the activities where basically we don't innovate anymore. And these activities are potentially declining. Horizon 1 we don't really innovate, but we continue to update the offers, standard norms, new technologies. Horizon 2, we invest and they're growing a lot. And Horizon 3, we invest a lot and they represent a very small part of the business, but they are our future innovations. And I can talk to you about some of them. So you have seen, although it's Horizon 2, horticulture, it's down there. So can you imagine that with light now and connected light, we can multiply the yield by a factor of 5, up to 20 if it's vertical farming. If you want to do tomatoes, you can do tomatoes without herbicide, without pesticide, without additives. And you use 20 times less water than in normal farming. So consuming less water as much as having a completely guaranteed yield are fantastic objectives that we can reach with these technologies. We are transmitting information through light. So if you go in our offices, you will have to add a dongle to your PC, and you will not get your information anymore from Wi-Fi. All the informations are coming from the light. So basically we modulate and demodulate the signal. We use a spectrum of light because the spectrum of light is available. The spectrum of Wi-Fi is completely congested. So we operate at something like 720 terahertz, so it's a very high frequency, but still in the part of the spectrum of light which is usable. And we demodulate and modulate the signal. What are the advantages? It is much faster than Wi-Fi. It is more stable. It is more sustainable because we don't live in radio waves all the time. It's just a spectrum of light. While at the same time, it is more secure. Some of our customers love it because at the end of the day, you cannot capture the signal if you're not under the light. And that is a huge advantage for many customers that want to have a secure network. We ventured lately in another technology, which is a very exciting one, which is the development of 5G networks. So what is the problem of 5G networks? The problem of 5G networks is on 1 square kilometer, you need 5 5G antenna, much more than with the previous technologies. Now, if you need to bring the fiber to 5 antenna, if you don't have a country where the fiber has been deployed, I mean, a country where the fiber has been deployed is Spain, for instance. I think there's more fiber deployed in Spain than in Germany, France, and Italy together. But if you don't have the fiber, bringing the fiber to the antenna is too costly. So we have a technology by which we bring the fiber to one light pole. This light pole gets the fiber, and we have a technology with luminaires that will multiplex the signal on 1 square kilometer, 25 of those luminaires, multiplexing the signal to the 5G antennas. We have tried that technology. It's fabulous because it helps us to bring the content to the 5G antenna, but also that technology helps us to generate local Wi-Fi networks. So it's interesting because if you are, I'm going to use the PSV Stadium here. So if you're at the PSV Stadium and you try to capture the signal you outside before the match, you're not going to get anything. There's too many people. But with that technology, we create a Wi-Fi network today which is allowing very high density of population to capture the signal. So as you can see, from an era of conventional to an era of LED, of connectivity and new technology in Horizon 3, innovation has been a big part of our story. And this is basically concluding the 15 minutes that I had to speak to you.
Would you like to sit down?
I'm good here.
Are you standing?
I'm fine.
It's healthier, right?
Yeah,
okay,
of
good.
course.
So if you have a question, there is a catch box, and Marina, my colleague, is going to throw it at you in a nice way. It's very close this time. Yeah.
Thank you. A very interesting story, very inspiring. I had a very practical question. Is the application of your technologies also different for blue or brown eyes, as they manage the information and the light differently?
No, you know, there's been a lot of discussions, especially when the LED came, because if you look at the technology of light, incandescent is very close to what we call a color rendering index of 100, which is mimicking exactly the outside light. And at the beginning, we could not do that with LED because LED is a blue light, so you need to put a phosphor on top of it and you transform that blue light into a different quality of light. Now, the way the eyes are perceiving the light is not different depending on the color, of the eyes. You can have a different perception depending on the quality of light, but today with LED you match any quality of light, especially color rendering index of above 90% without any issue.
I'm actually referring to, for example, I have blue eyes. My eyes are tired faster because of all the headlights at night. So the intensity is perhaps different in the...
Yeah, I don't think it's the color of the eyes, it's more your own sensitivity. Now, this is why we claim to avoid flickering, to avoid all the elements that would generate the wrong dispersion of light. So for that, you need a good quality of light. And the good quality of light is a good perception and a light which is changing during the day. In the morning, even your blue eyes will need more blue light because you need to be energized. Don't use blue light at night because that will not allow you to sleep well. So at the end of the day, the type of light has to change during the day to adapt to our own rhythm and metabolism. And at night, it's very important that the light doesn't blind you because it doesn't do any good to your health and to your tiredness.
Thank you.
It has to follow your biodynamic rhythm.
The circadian rhythm, yeah.
Yeah. Another question. A little bit to the left, here. Maybe you were one of the sporty ones, jumped up.
Well thrown. I hear you that you've expanded the life of LED lighting or of lighting from 1 year to 10 years, which is of course a great achievement. Yet you still have a product designed for linear economy. So it is still disposed of at the end of its life. I see many companies now focusing in the lighting industry also on circularity, so getting product back at the end of their life and reusing them, repurposing them, not recycling them because that is basically shredding the same devices. Is that also something, because it requires fundamentally a different approach also in your production facilities, is that something that you're addressing?
I think that's a very important point. Look, I had only 15 minutes, so I could not talk about everything. But basically, when we realized that we could go from 100 to 3 or to 5 at a time, we said we need to be, as a company, an example. So if you look at Signify today, we are carbon neutral, Scope 1, Scope 2, and a bit of Scope 3 already in September 2020. Zero waste to landfill. We have done virtual power purchase agreement to buy our power from renewable source, but not just taking the credits, just helping people who want to invest in renewable generation capabilities and so on. So we've done all that. Now, there are 5 fundamental quests that we have today. 1, climate change and clean energy, which is energy efficiency and solar lighting. We are investing tremendously in those 2 domains. The other domain is food security, so you will see here what we do for horticulture. It's huge, it's big. Agriculture is changing. We cannot give food to 10 billion people in 2050 if we continue to produce it in the same way, so we need to change. Security and health and well-being, and the 5th one is circularity. So circularity is fundamental. So how can we use better the resources of that planet? So we do a few things. First, we do serviceable luminaires. So if you look at our luminaires, when you need to change something, you don't change everything. It's modular. The second thing is that we have invested in 3D printing. Today we have in the world 8 3D plants to do luminaires and to do parts of our products. So what is the beauty of it? Before, we were using the technology and or material, raw material, and the lifetime was 15 years. Today it's 80 years. Because I give those products to my customers, but they bring them back to me. And when they bring them back to me, I can take back the material and repurpose it. So that is a very, very important engagement that we have started already, 3.5 to 4 years ago. Now we start to have a business. If you go to Albertine here, you will see that they have a lot of luminaires from us. Not only the one that are on the roof, but the pending, the one that are suspended, and they are 3D printed. So more and more we can do with 3D printed all type of textures that look like glass or like anything you want, but they are 3D printed, meaning that you can give them a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth life, up to 80% usage of the resources of the planet. Now, something else that we're looking at, and you ask a very important question. Tomorrow, how can I do to get back the products that still can live again, rather than have them dumped? So we need to think about how we can recoup the products that our customers are not going to use anymore, because if you think about a retail environment, it's 5 to 7 years. They change everything. If you talk about offices, it's about 11 years. So in the building industry, it's probably around 10 years. So every 10 years they change, not because the product doesn't work anymore, but because they want something new. So now we're thinking about how do we do to recoup these products and eventually give them a second life. What is the advantage? Well, the big advantage is that we help the Scope 3 footprint of our customers, because one of their problems is how do you recycle at the end of life? Well, we take it back. And we need now to design our products so that we can very quickly take them back, maybe take 1 or 2 parts out, repurpose them, and bring them back to the market again. Because the technology, the LED technology is lasting for much longer than the commercial usable life. It's a key question, and we're looking at it at this point in time. But in terms of sustainability, we're quite advanced. We've been 6 times, in 6 years, we've been 5 times number 1 time number 2 in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for industrial capital goods company, which is a super cool achievement.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, great question. So I also have a question, because it's very inspiring, everything you do, and it's amazing to see the demo here as well, and the examples you give. But in the news the last year, Signify hasn't been always had positive reports. It was also about bringing people back after the COVID pandemic. You are a big supporter of always working at the office. There were jobs lost. Could you also reflect on this?
You read the news.
Yes. But how is this for you? How do you look at this?
She reads the news. Okay. We have different pleasures, but okay. Look, our point is very simple. It's about teamwork. It's about efficiency. It's also probably about health and fun. So let me explain. If someone comes to us like, it may happen, and tell us, I want to work from home 2 days a week and I decide when. We're not interested. As a company, we are fundamentally not interested. And I'm very clear, maybe I'm the only one to be clear, although many people think the same, but I don't know what they're afraid of. We need absolutely to state what we stand for. Because for me, working as a team is fundamental. So we cannot decide when we come, when we don't come, because the team needs us, and we need the team. So it's not a fundamental control of who comes to work, but people who would believe that they can work, on Mars and come whenever they want. That's not what we're supporting at Signify at all. I strongly believe also that some jobs cannot be done from home. That's another problem. We have competitors. I have customers, they work from office 5 days a week, and we need to support them. You are people from innovation. How can you do innovation from home? When I have a project, a new offer to develop, if I work from home, it's not as efficient. By the way, we have less efficiency in places where we are not present during the full week than in places where we are. So these are elements which are very linked to the values that we defend as a company. We want teamwork, and we want people to engage together. Now there's another element which is as important for me. Staying in front of a computer, looking at your computer all the day long, in your home. Who really wants a life like that? Look, I've done it because in 2020 I had no option, so I've done it for 3 months. I was getting no energy out of that. Why would we want our people to stay at home, 10 meters away from their bed, having no distinction between their personal environment and their work environment? I think we have a big problem. We are not done for that. We are animals of movement. We are animals of connection. So what seems to be convenient, what seems to be comfortable, I think in the long run is generating a lot of problems. And you know, we never had as many mental health issues than during the crisis because people live alone in their home. Okay, I work here, my bed is 10 meters away. Someone tells me, yes, if I work from home, I can work until 11 p.m. I don't want people to work until 11 p.m. I don't want. I want them to be happy at work. When they leave work, they go from their work person to their home person, and they do their home stuff, and they're happy at home, and then they come back energized. You know, I play guitar. Since you warmed us up, it's your fault. So I play guitar.
And here is a guitar. No, just kidding.
I play guitar, and I have a teacher. So and sometimes I cannot do something. I cannot. I try and I can. No, then it takes my mind out. Somewhere he starts to talk to me about other stuff. Though I know his technique, but I still go with it. And when I stop, I go back to it and I do it well. So we need to get out and get in. We need to get out and get in. So that rhythm is very important. And you know what? There's something that I've learned. We are people. We are human, and human needs human. You know, if you ask me to do my job from home, I'm going to do something else. Because my interest in life is meeting people. My interest is learning from others, taking energy and trying to give a little bit. That's what we stand for. And even if we don't realize it, it's absolutely fundamental. Exchanging human energy helps you to grow. It gives you another purpose, another sense of what life is for. And that's how we feel at Signify. We're not hiding it.
We have one last question. Maybe in the front, Marina. Yeah.
Hi, Rick. Shifting innovation and technology, we heard over the decades, as that's improving, do you also foresee innovation in selling and marketing of such products?
No. It goes together. You're right. You know, because when you sell connected stuff, you have to change completely the business model. And that has been also a big difficulty, is how do we change the business model? You need to have salespeople trained differently. We need to talk about return on investment. You don't talk about functionality of the products anymore. You're not selling a product with a reference and you ship it wherever. No, you have to understand the system. You come, you measure, you see how many lights are going to be needed, how you're going to connect them, and you do it, you commission it. So yes, innovation, when you push it at these extreme levels, come with a different go-to-market. On Li-Fi, you know, which is lights, sending information, I have a separate team. On extension of 5G networks, we are creating startups. They're fully incubated. They are different organizations. And they work on the technology, but they work also on the marketing and they work on the sales. And the sales are completely different. You know, I went to talk to a guy in the Pentagon about how we transmit light. Light can transmit information to a jet, which is taking off or landing. You don't do that with a sales force who is going to distribution. So you really need to completely adapt the knowledge of your people and your go-to-market. It goes absolutely together.
Thanks. Give him a very big applause. Erik Rondolat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to ask to come on the stage Andy, Marloes and Alex. Please join me for a panel. And while you're joining on the stage, I'll introduce it because we're going to talk about the Metaverse and Web3. Because we hear the terms popping up more and more often, like they're the same. And despite more experts coming into the field, the question does remain, what exactly is Web3? What is the Metaverse? And especially, what can we do with it? And what are business opportunities? So we will talk about this with our three panelists, Marloes Pont, coordinator and advisor at the Netherlands AI Coalition and Dutch Blockchain Coalition, Andy Leurling, founding partner of Lumolabs, and Alex van der Baan, CEO and founder and co-founder of Your Open Metaverse. Give them a big applause, please. Marloes, let's start with the Metaverse. Please enlighten us. How would you describe it?
Well, there is no metaverse yet, so let's start with that. For me personally, it's the immersive experience, like you see at this moment within gaming or the VR applications. It's also a scale. Apple is more focused on augmented reality, just a layer on top of the physical reality, or the fully experience with, at this moment, the classes. So that's more the experience. Gartner expects that in 2026, 25% of the people will spend at least 1 hour in the metaverse. But people are not, they don't agree exactly about what the metaverse is, but more or less there are two definitions. The first one is the smaller definition, like Facebook Meta adopts. They say, like, we started using the internet with a personal computer, then we were using our mobile phones, and the metaverse will be our next entrance to the internet. That might be an option. The other, more broader definition is that we will develop a new form of the internet, Web3, with a digital economy, with digital experiences where communities, a more community-based form of the internet with digital assets, digital land, and so on. For me, we can talk about the metaverse when there's one metaverse, like there's a mobile internet, and we're not there yet, but there are interesting developments already, mainly in the entertainment business, gaming, fashion.
So we see it coming up. Andy, what do we already see?
A lot. But a lot of islands. So is there a metaverse, or is there not a metaverse? I guess that's not the question. I guess we all agree there will be one. And like the internet, there will be a lot of web pages. You will, I guess, elaborate on that one. I see a lot of examples in that space already.
Can you give a few examples?
I can give a few examples. I believe I saw Guido of Unit 040 here. If you are here, stand up. Your moment of fame. There you go. I guess it was 2017 that we already knew each other, and I don't know if I say something which I'm not allowed to say, but if you go to Schiphol and you have all the belts, luggage belts, well, they produce that already in the virtual world as digital twins, and you can more or less, before you really developing it at Schiphol, see what the mistakes are or not. Do I agree or not? Yeah, so that's an example of a digital twin where the time to market will be increased. The mistakes will be engineered out already in the virtual world. I mean, that's an example. 2016, 17, I'm not sure anymore. I brought Marcel Boekhorn, the former owner, and John Jorritsma, the former mayor. So we're getting old, it's all former. Into live, from our office here at High Tech Campus, into a windmill park in Norway. And they could walk there, they could have a God perspective. If you're not a gamer, look it up, God perspective. And they would see all the analytics, so all the data of how much power, kilowatt hours were produced per windmill. They could go into the windmill, they could explode the windmill, and I don't mean with fire, but more that you see all the elements and see when it was there to be repaired and to be monitored. Those are examples already of digital twins. Is that the metaverse? Of course not. That's not a metaverse, but it's like simple.
It's part.
Guidance.
That will be the metaverse, or okay. And Alex, your company is called Your Open Metaverse, so you must be having a good answer also on the matter here. So what do you do?
Yeah, so we're from Your Open Metaverse. We started 2 years ago. We're a COVID-born startup, I would say. I'm the chief everything officer, indeed. So perhaps to start off with Metaverse, right? So what's the promise of the Metaverse? You probably have seen a lot of news feeds happening saying, okay, this is going to be an X trillion billion business in 2030. To us, eventually what we believe and what our team is working on is basically a completely new channel. We have already for over a few hundred years the retail channel that everybody knows, the e-tail channel with everything that Google and Analytics have done for the last 15 years. And what we believe is that the convergence of game technology, the attention economy that everybody knows who's doing something on TikTok, will really start to shape over the next few years. And that's what I believe the promise of the Metaverse as a channel is. And what we do as a company, we create a tech platform where we allow brands and companies and creators to utilize the Metaverse for their own company, just as 10, 15 years ago, companies started to use, let's say, YouTube to bring a narrative from their company to their audience. One of the big important parts of Metaverse is, and also Web3 is that it's a transformation of, let's say, a social internet into an internet you can own. So the combination of an immersive experience with a community is quite important, and also the tokenization of the economy. And of course, when I say tokenization, everybody thinks about crypto, all that kind of stuff. We just had FTX happening last week, so everybody's like, it's gonna die. Bitcoin I think the obituaries are everywhere again. But tokenization of experiences and loyalty programs and digital assets, we believe is gonna be huge. And basically, the toolkit that we deliver to companies will allow them to excel there.
And how do your clients get in the metaverse? I mean, do they put on glasses? What do they do?
So we're technology agnostic. One of the issues, obviously, when you start talking about virtual reality, which is it's an amazing technology. However, adoption is low. So if you would be just talking about virtual reality, then people would come to me and say, Alex, people told me in 1990 that it would happen, 10 years it would happen, and you're going to be the third guy that's going to tell me that everything's going to be VR. So it needs to work on your mobile phone. So that's the part of the technology that we're doing. We're using Unreal Engine as one of the primary game engines where these immersive worlds and environments can live. We basically stream that and allow a lot of additional technologies to come with that. You can imagine that if you're looking at an interesting YouTube channel, everything is scripted, right? But if you have a Unreal environment with all sorts of worlds where you can portal from one end to another, you have to consider how's crowd management happening? How's portal management happening? Where are my virtual cameras? How is the whole user journey? What would I like to tell as a company? What would I perhaps like my fans or customers to buy or to get? It can be a concert. It can be so many things. Sports, media, and entertainment are the verticals we see happening today.
They're focusing really on the metaverse, right?
Exactly, because these are the verticals that already have a very well established community, fans that want to have a piece of that company.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And for example, if we zoom in on sports in the metaverse, how would it look like? Can you give an example?
I'm not a big football fan, or soccer, I should say, but you can imagine if you're looking at Qatar right now, obviously there's a lot of fandom happening there. People are watching these feeds already from what we're seeing from the United States. There's a lot of technology happening in specific analytics on the gameplay, but you could imagine being there, but also instead of FIFA against, let's say, a particular match that is going to happen tomorrow against Argentina, you could actually say, okay, we're going to have a soccer team somewhere with motion capture cameras, and we're going to, in real time, trying to beat Messi. So that you're actually in real time playing with real time data points. So that you're actually part of the action.
Andy, do you want to be part of the action?
I was part of the action already.
Oh, okay.
No, my former company, we had it already. Yeah? We were a bit too early there. So we had all the data of the Formula 1 cars, and we had 25,000 people driving against the real drivers at that point when a real game was going. So instead of watching the game, it was like participating in the game. Solving a lot of other good problems. That's where we made our money, not because we were just too early with the audacious goal we had. Well, if you look nowadays at the marshalling system of the Formula 1, well, more or less that's the same technology which we developed. So it's Metaverse and Web3. It started already when Web 2 was there, you know.
But it just takes a long time to
takes,
it's not really concrete yet. Do you understand the confusion, Marloes, between that people have with the two terms as well?
Yes, I fully understand. I think it's important to see the difference between Web 2 and Web 3, and you can build a metaverse based on Web 2 principles or based on Web 3 principles. And I think it's important to have a discussion with each other. What kind of metaverse do we want, or metaverses do we want? When it's Web 2, and I expect it will be a combination of both. For example, when you're a musician, you can use Spotify to reach a lot of people with your music, so it's all about quantity. Web 3 is more community-focused, fan-focused. So you will sell your music to a smaller group, but your real fans. And you can sell your music, for example, as an NFT. And your fans, they will become part of your brand, and they will become part of your company. But you can use both. You can use Web 2 to reach the big audience. You can use Web 3 to build a strong connection with your community. And when you will add this virtual part, then you, as a musician, you can have a concert in a virtual environment where people will, will feel like they're really there. I joined a concert with Justin Bieber in a VR environment. There were a lot of buildings. Justin Bieber, he had his suit with sensors, and he was dancing, and a lot of girls joining this concert. They were screaming. I've never seen a chat going so fast. You could also send lights and hearts to Justin Bieber, but you can imagine he can sell his merchandise, he can sell music as an NFT, but there were also buildings in this area where you can have a branding from companies, or you can have gaming elements in these concepts. So it's a combination of Web 2, Web 3, the metaverse, and we will see new business models, a new digital economy combined with the economy we do see at this moment.
So before we go to the business opportunities, just to be clear, so Web 1 was just web pages we could read.
Web 2 was more about interactive content, the rise of the platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and so on.
Video calling.
YouTube, but you don't own YouTube, you don't own Twitter. Web 3 is more about you can read, you can have interaction, but you will also own these companies or these platforms. Sometimes it's owning does mean you actually own the company or the product or the service. Sometimes owning means that you have a role in the governance, but how does the future of this company look like, or you will have voting rights. So it depends, the governance model is different for each Web3 company, but they're all community-based. Leadership is in line with the community. It's transparent. There's a digital, in a lot of cases, there's tokenization, a digital way of payments, wallets.
So there's a big difference, because in Web 2 you saw what we have now, that the big tech giants have a huge, they took a huge role and part of our lives with the apps we use, and in Web 3 it should be more decentralized.
I hope so, but when you the biggest investments at this moment, they are made by Apple, Google, Facebook, and some
Facebook changed their name,
even changed their name, and the bigger gaming platforms. But I think it's important to have a more diverse landscape with more companies building Web3 and the Metaverse, and that more solutions should be decentralized. And I don't expect it will all be decentralized. There will also be some central players, and maybe that's not, if there's a combination, that could be fine. But we should do, we should be more active than with the race of Web 2. We were too lazy.
We should involve more companies.
Yes, and we should be more aware of the downsides, and what does it mean if we will end up with the Metaverse in the hands of the bigger tech companies, which does own now Web 2.
Yeah,
and we can. It's a great moment. We can build a different web at this moment.
Yeah, and it doesn't help, Andy, that it's still like a bit fake, right?
No, but everything what is new is, of course, difficult. And it's a bit fake. Let's go back to when light exists for the first time. Everybody was thinking it was magic. They didn't understand. So it takes time. I guess first of all, it's not that we're gonna go from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. It is we go from Web 1, we add Web 2, we add.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's not forget about that. That we're gonna totally disrupt and change the system, and Web 2 is not there anymore. We are still here also communicating face to face. That was before Web.
Very old school.
Very old school, but it's still there. Yeah. And what I do see, and is that because now we're talking about the commercial part of the metaverse. The metaverse is, as in my opinion, as I always try to explain it to my parents, if I can explain to my parents who are totally they don't even use the mobile phone yet, then I say that it's just the digital twin of the world, and it really starts with that. So we all use our mobile phone. That's already Web 2, Web 3, because we will make it into Web 3. So we should not forget here, and luckily Tim Berners-Lee and other people are working on that, making themselves hard, that it's about us. It's about us as human people, human beings being people, to be in the center of that. And that's why I've been preaching already for whenever I can, that this is the time, from Web 2 to Web 3, that we have to start developing human-centered.
Yeah, but I think it's also about philosophy, right? Of course, we as a company, we're much more focused on trying to carve out business models. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we also have a in-house philosopher. We have an in-house DJ, because we really want to sort of feel how these new business models work. But also, I sometimes compare it to the start of free and open source software. When Linus Torvalds started thinking about that kernel that I'm sure a lot of you guys are using here in a further iteration, the whole idea was, right, you add on top of the code, you share that together, and we all make it better. And I think that's exactly where Web 2 went wrong, and that's what I believe, even though you make commercial models, we have to do better in Web 3. And that's why we called our company Your Open Metaverse, because we truly believe, and we're working on that in the Metaverse Standards Forum, that there should be some sort of HTML5 standard that works for everybody.
Yeah. And on top of that, I will not allow in his open metaverse which is called Your Open Metaverse, that my data is not my data, because I learned from Facebook. And I think we have the role now, as being the pioneers of Web3, that we get everybody educated, that we should not just give our data away. It's our data, and if I allow that in exchange or something, you can use the data which belongs to me, then I'm happy to give to you that you can do something with it.
Yes, but I'm sure that most of the people here saw last week that there were new terms and conditions on TikTok. I just saw a picture of your son on your phone. I wonder how at your dinner table the discussion went with your son saying, okay, Xi Jinping wants to have all the data from TikTok. The algorithm is much more invasive here in Europe, so I would recommend that you delete your TikTok.
To be honest, he doesn't. He's not allowed to
I think it's
we have that discussion at the table. I said, no, you're not allowed to have TikTok.
Okay, I hope
I'm the only one in the class.
I hope I can manage with my 5-year-old.
No, but that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do things like that? It's so integrated.
Exactly.
How it works, and you're part of a community if you have TikTok.
Yes, but it's. I fully agree. It's about education. It's about making people aware. Also, because all the downside of Web 2, we allowed it to happen. So we should be. We didn't care. Me neither. So we should be prepared for Web 3, and we should be more aware of what kind of a metaverse, what kind of a web, the future, how should the future of the web look like. So it's about education, and we can do better. There are technologies at this moment to make sure that you can control your own data and that you can be aware of how he's using your data. So there are possibilities to do better.
But that's why I think it's important to work on these business models, right? We just spoke about the music industry. So we have a young DJ as a DJ in residence, DJ Sam Ace. You can see some stuff on our website. And the reason why we were working with this young DJ, because she came alone without all her lawyers attached and her record label. So if you want to create, let's say, a number of tracks, it usually costs around between 50 and 150,000 euros. And there are a lot of people involved. And the nice thing about using tokenized technology in smart contracting is that you can set everything up. You can make sure with royalties that everybody gets rewarded, and that you can actually show these young performers who already have their own community set up. They don't need a record label for that. They just go out and they show, we're performing, we're basically crowdsourcing our music, our fans actually own it, and we can build on top of our career without all these old structures, basically. And if you show that, it doesn't perhaps sound so philosophical, but you can actually show young people and older people as well that this new technology gives you possibility to do stuff without all these old structures in place.
And if you're sitting here in the room, you're an innovator in the high-tech industry, you made a fantastic technology, you want to do something with Metaverse, where do you start?
I think
www.
Well, you go yom.000. That's our URL that you can visit. But first of all, I think you just mentioned the technology from Schiphol and the virtual and the digital twins, which I think is quite important. But what we usually tell our clients when they come in is stop thinking about making a copy of your shop or of your point of sale. There is no need for a ceiling, there is no need for a chair, because you can fly, you can do whatever you want. So if you build this immersive experience in line with a specific narrative for a specific target group, everybody has their personas already on the wall, at least the marketing department. So just be a little bit more creative, and when you start creating these immersive experiences, think bigger. And because then people actually want to be there. Because last week we saw a metaverse from the EU, 6 people joined, 400K spent, because the EU apparently wants to talk about legislation with a new target audience. But I mean, really start to think about what's my story, who would I like to reach, and then build something around it. And I think then you can be successful, because you have nothing if there's a virtual world with 3 people in it.
So you already talked about the community. So to be successful in the metaverse, you have to be a brand, Andy.
Is the city of Eindhoven a brand? Yes. Peter is here. Again, in my opinion, Web3 and Metaverse, as I always explain it, is a really an overlay of AR, augmented reality, from the real world. And I guess there you have the city of Eindhoven, who can do a lot of things with that. 2, a digital twin of the real environment or the real machine. That's also Metaverse. 2, what you just explained, a totally fancy world. It's all in the end the Metaverse. It's just different applications of that same Metaverse. Augmented reality is there, virtual reality is there. I, as Andy, am in the Metaverse. When Peter decides to have like all augmented reality art flying around here on the High Tech Campus of in the city center, I'm an avatar, I'm my own avatar in that Metaverse. In his Metaverse, I can be whomever I want to be. I can be a unicorn, with purple hair or pink hair. I can make my own avatar. Yeah. So it is the total spectrum.
But why is it necessary that, for example, you're sitting in the audience, do you think it's necessary that a lot of these companies here take the step to be in the Metaverse?
Yeah, you can also ask, do you have a website? Or it's the same question. Do you have a presence in the mobile at the mobile internet?
It's just the next step.
It is just the next step, and here we won the urban air mobility call, so the autonomous urban
air drones flying on the campus.
Autonomous drones flying around the campus. The infrastructure used for that is the spatial web protocol. The spatial web protocol is the internet-free protocol, where you add, besides a second dimension, which you only need for internet, a third dimension. Exactly. And that allows Peter Kenty to do whatever he wants with augmented reality in the city of Eindhoven, because he can pinpoint it to Eindhoven. And that's really the answer, and I believe it was, I don't know if I said it to Paul Verzon, the innovation manager, or to Jan Willem Neggers, the CEO, but I said, did you already register the spatial web protocol for the High Tech Campus? Because otherwise there's somebody in China who registers that, and you cannot own it. And that happened with, I don't know if it helped to Philips.com, but it happened to a lot of companies back in the days when internet started. And that's why it's so important that you are all aware that in, say, 3 to 7 years, I don't have really like the exact number, we will have that spatial web protocol. And you all will have a third generation of internet domain. That's why it's important.
I think it's a good time for questions. There's a question in front, Marina.
Thanks. So I was actually triggered by the remark about the TikTok rules and certain kind of thing you need to accept. So what happened yesterday in Germany, from my point of view, if you look at it from a systems perspective, it has something to do with the social media, with the algorithms, with everything that's behind that. When I translate that into the remark that we're now trying to build Web 3 on top of the 2 first layers, do you think that it's something that we will self-regulate, and we'll figure it out? Or do you think we need some sturdy legislation? Because I'm more and more convinced that we as Europe, or the Netherlands, but Europe probably, we need to put a halt to basically sharing and sending all our data about all behavior, all our people, all the people that live in Europe, across to China and to the US, the 2 models.
I fully agree, and I think that's also a lot of regulation is coming, like the AI Act, and they also announced they will come with Metaverse regulation. But of course, it's also always a balance between regulation and innovation. But I certainly think we do need regulation for Web3 and Metaverse. But it's not only a role for the government or the regulators. I think it's also a role for us all together to be more prepared, and as companies to be more aware about how what are you going to use? Where do you store your data? Are you giving it all to Amazon platforms, or are there alternative ways. Also, a few years ago, it wasn't a discussion at all, and now it's much more important to have AI made in Europe, have Web3 companies made in Europe. So it's completely changed. There's a reason for that. Regulation is the first step. Legislation is needed, but it starts with us as persons, because if we all agree TikTok.
At a certain time, 70% of the population was smoking.
Yeah,
right?
similar.
And we basically had very active government policies to reduce that, and it's a lot lower today because of that. Not because of the tobacco manufacturers that were selling.
No, but we also have the e-cigarettes now, with our youth using the e-cigarettes more and more. So we should pay attention, because the companies, they will have their new tactics and the new strategies. So it's important that it's not only a role of the government, but also for all of us.
I think it's not only policy, and we agree there. It's of course it's policy. On the other hand, it's raising awareness and education, because I believe that for part it's that people smoke less because of policy, but maybe more because
we know it's bad.
It's awareness,
yes,
and
yes.
It's education that it's really bad for your health. Yeah. In this world, the Web3 world, it's maybe not bad for your health, but it's in the end it's bad for us. It's bad for me personally, but it's also bad for the community, and therefore it's always top bottom up. I mean, there are really smart people working at European Union, and they are working on it. Data Act, GDPR Act, AI Act, but then it's us as people who have to tick or not tick the box also at one point.
What do you think, Alex?
I'm happy with all the bureaucrats in Brussels, because I think they're doing quite a good job. Looking at indeed the AI Act, we have, we're in the digital ledger technology or the blockchain technology as well. In 2 years, there's going to be the marketing crypto assets regulation, and all these big regulations, also GDPR. You've seen that even though we're not a big power block, but we are on the legislation side, we have a golden standard when it comes to legislation. And I think all these big acts coming together, these regulations, will really thrust these Web3 companies ahead. I mean, we are currently in a race for quite a big grant, also from the EU and from the Dutch government, and also from the EU government. The data autonomy, the whole idea of the fact, okay, basically internet in Web 1 was sort of figured out here in Europe, in Switzerland. It was monetized in the US. We had really amazing, not just hives, but really good Web 2 companies as well, from the Netherlands, from Europe, once again, thought of here, monetized in the US. And I think right now what we're seeing is that there's definitely a lot of awareness from the Netherlands in the Topsector, with immersive tech. There's a lot of things happening, and also from the EU, there's a lot of willingness to help companies like ourselves, small startups, to really thrive in this new Web3 economy, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
And adding to that, that's why we started the VC fund, investing in Web3, because we see that. We see these good initiatives. We also see that this initiative in the US would have grown already 10 times faster, because there's so much more money available there.
Yeah, so you think you would have it
money,
almost easier if you were in the US, but...
And let's not forget what I just said. This is really Web 2. You could shut off the computer, you shut off your mobile phone, and it's not there anymore for you. Yeah. Web 3 is not like that. Web 3 will be all around us. Yeah. So you cannot shut it off. It's there. So we have.
You see my terrified face. Right? It's good.
So it's like with crypto, right? It's like not your keys, not your coins. That was basically what went wrong with FTX, right? A lot of people are trusting these centralized institutions, put their funds there, and then it seems that you can't trust them. But once people, also the people here, because the whole Web3 thing, it sounds far away, right? But if everybody here will start using crypto wallets or wallets as an identity. The Dutch government this week presented their first MVP about it. So you can have your identity with your kids going somewhere, exposing some of your information about the things you like to do as a family. You can do that as a consumer. So the whole thing with your identity and how you store and use these wallets is going to be a big thing, and that's going to be a big game change. So that's why I would like to urge everybody to, even though you're like, I'm not into crypto, I'm not into all that weird stuff that I hear about Bored Apes and everything, just the technology, the fact that how you can manage these identities, how you can store your own data, your own digital assets, that's definitely going to be a big thing over the next 5 years for everybody.
Very interesting.
And I saw the fear in your eyes, but we can be afraid of it, or we can embrace it. The only thing is, and especially in this region, because
and there you need education, right?
Awareness and education, and from that awareness we can. I really believe that we have something here now, because we have the European Union actively being involved, and we can really have ethical and moral internet free, which we can bring to the other regions.
Yeah, and there are, of course, a lot of possibilities. We talked about education in another context, but I think one of the best use cases for the metaverse is education. We can provide much more better education to everyone at any moment when we will use the metaverse. It will be much more interesting for children to learn about history, to learn about other countries in the metaverse, where they can experience this environment, where they can be taught by the best teachers in the world, where they can join with children worldwide. They are doing this already within their game environments, but if we will enter the metaverse to schools and universities, there's a huge upside. So of course, maybe there are reasons to be scared, but let's also focus on the benefits.
Very interesting. Another question from the audience.
Oh, that's far away.
I see.
Nice throw. You just said that legislation coming from the EU is actually helping. I see that normally the EU is quite slow in creating legislation around these new themes, because they still think about Web 2 and this behaves differently. So at this moment, for instance, if I see companies starting up blockchain, crypto type investments, they do that either in Lithuania, they do that in Liechtenstein, or they do it in the Seychelles, simply because legislation is not here yet to build that economy on a commercial and stable way, and they're afraid to move forward simply because legislation may or may not help or kill your business model. How do you see that?
You're absolutely right. So last year we had our seed capital of $2 million. That was all in through crypto. So very nice, of course, for us as a startup. After a lot of struggle to sort of persuade people, even 2 years ago, I see a lot of people looking like, what are you guys doing? And 2 years ago it was even worse. But then you have $2 million on your wallet, and then you have to sort of persuade banks to pay your salaries, a lot of stuff, a lot of issues. And the first thing people say, go to the BVI, British Virgin Islands, go to Cayman Islands. And we actually made a whole virtual trip all over the world to see where should we be. And we eventually decided to be here in the Netherlands because we are a B2B company, or B2B2C, I should say. And we truly believe that we should also be part of the narrative and the conversation also as legislators. So the good thing for us as Web3 is there is nothing. There is no legislation, nothing. My accountant gets frustrated every time I say I have all these wallets, transfers, all these kind of things. So you have to you have to shape it. You have to talk to a lot of fiscalists, accountants, and everybody. And you have to explain what you're doing. I'm writing up the memo. I'm waiting for the IRS, the Belastingdienst, to come over, and then I hope that I get somebody who sort of understands what we're doing. But it also means that you have to at least do something. But even if I go to Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Singapore, I get the same issue there as well. And we just have to sort of explain our business, what we try to do, and then hope that we figure out there is a sort of somebody from the other side that understands what we're doing. But yeah,
but
there's
it's
nothing
also,
there.
of course, something front runners, they have to deal with these complex situations, but also here regulation is on the way with the MiCA regulation. So I expect, and also the sector itself, the crypto sector, they are more and more willing to adopt regulation, also because the central solutions like FTX, we see a lot of fraud. So the regulation will come, but let's also be clear that in the current situation, there are a lot of hurdles. I do have a stichting to help people, Ukrainian people. It took me 4 months to get a bank account. So there are not only problems in the new situations, there are also a lot of hurdles and struggles in the current situations. So not everything is the problem of crypto or innovation, but also the current bank system has the problems more in general.
At least I would say they are on it right now. And if you look at the Web 2 era,
yeah,
the internet, they were nowhere to be seen. You know,
yeah.
like they are. I don't believe it's even arranged today. So
yeah.
they skipped that step. So
Yeah.
that's we of course have to always see it in perspective of like Eric said, Horizon 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Web 3 is now for I guess if we compare it, Horizon 2, 3, and definitely not 0 or 1.
But I think it's a little bit more about it. I mean, yes, it's about technology, but even the MiCA regulation, they figured out consumer protection, but decentralized finance is nowhere to be found. So they're still quite a bit behind. But what I do think is important is the value system. And I think all the EU legislation has the EU value in it. And I think that's also the way that we as a European Union look towards the Ukrainian situation. Yes, it's gonna hurt our economy, but we still have to do that because this is the value system that we're at. And that's also the discussion we have now with other countries that are trying to get either in the Schengen zone. So there is this value system which is important, and these values are entwined in these legislation. And that's the most important part. The technology, we will always be ahead of what legislators will figure out. So in that sense, we're always on our own in that sense.
Well, and that's for the urban air mobility call which we did, the autonomous drones. We were working on and are working on a dynamic regulation, because it's a fact that regulation will always be after the technology development, but you can speed it up by having a dynamic regulation system, and that's again possible with the AI coming in now.
Yeah. Okay. Final question. And maybe you can choose which one would like to answer it most, who really likes to answer it, because I'm really curious about what is your future dream when looking at the Metaverse? Maybe we can ask all of you three very shortly.
You as a unicorn.
You as a unicorn, yeah. That would be
You want to see me as a unicorn?
Yes.
Okay, well, can you arrange it?
Well, yeah, for me, I'm really looking at my 5-year-old son. He's playing with all our VR technology coming to our office, and I think what you're seeing in that whole new generation, the way they interact, but also the 8 and the 12 years old, I think that it shows a lot of opportunity, and I think, you know, the opportunities are endless in what we can do, and I think the technology will follow. In a few years, there's no phones anymore. We're going to have AR glasses, and it's going to be sort of part of our life, and we're slowly getting in there. And this in real life events like this will always happen, and it must be. So,
but there will be a unicorn here, and people can
exactly
choose if they want to see look at me as Andy or as a unicorn. I mean,
well, I'm looking forward to that.
No, but I would answer it as that I would like to see in seamlessly real world and virtual world where I can choose where I want to be at that moment. If I want to look at you as the person who you are, or as the unicorn, the avatar that you choose, and that I am self-sovereign, that I own my data, that I can choose whom to give my data to, and what I get in return, or that I want to give it for free. or that I want to spend the credits I earned at playing a game to your foundation to save, or not save Ukraine, but to help Ukraine. It would be great if I can save Ukraine with that, but okay.
More in control and seamless.
And, yeah, but that starts also with all the businesses here thinking in another way, like, okay, we have to give the power back to the people, and how does then the business model still work? And that's what you're doing, that's what I like.
Marloes.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Andy said. And the unicorn, what the unicorn said. But for me personally, I'm also interested in Web3 and the Metaverse because it's a combination between creative meets tech. So we talk about technology today, but Web3 is really about bringing the creative and the tech communities together. So next time we should bring in more creators. I also enjoy the mindset of the younger generation. The youngest generation is the first gaming first generation. So the generation before was raised with social media and YouTube, Netflix and so on. The current youngest generation spent most of the time in gaming, and gaming is most prepared for the metaverse. So it's, we should take a look at this generation. How do they think? How do they interact? And I also like the mindset of the younger generation regarding diversity and inclusion. They are a different generation. They do have a better mindset to build Web3. And that's
to do a little better.
To do a little better. So that's why I'm hopeful.
And Ingelou, you after this discussion, how would you love to see it?
I would love to be a unicorn too.
Yeah,
and
can unicorn together.
Nice. No, but I really hope. I'm also looking a lot at the diversity and inclusion part, and I really hope that there's a lot of attention also that there's a diverse group of people in the metaverse that we can create together with different people, because I think then we can make it a little bit more inclusive than it is now.
To create it, it's essential. Actually, I had a talk with TechLeap about that yesterday. There will be a masterclass on January 31st about that one. In order to make it inclusive, we need to have the people to make it inclusive.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
different kind of people.
Wouldn't not help. Yeah.
Well, we're going to give you a very big applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this was part 1 of the plenary program. There is now 45 minutes of time to meet fellow innovators during the demos. Please be back at 4, and there are 2 ways to get out. So if we just split up the room, one way goes this way, the other way goes that, and we'll see you around at 4. Welcome back. Welcome back to the second part of the plenary program, and after this we have drinks and of course still time to visit the demos. Did we like them so far? Yeah? Okay, nice. So we will start the second part of this plenary program with a keynote about healthcare, because sooner or later we all have to deal with it, right? Our own health. And that it's important, we all agree. But what will healthcare look like in the future, and what transformations can be expected? Today we will learn more about this, future healthcare technologies, and also the impact they will have on ecosystems, on businesses and society. Carmen van Vilsteren is chair of the Topsector Life Sciences and Health of the Ministry, and also director of the Eindhoven MedTech Innovation Center. And I think we're going to give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Ingelou, and of course, thank you very much as well for this invitation and the honor to be here, one of the keynote speakers in the conference of the year. I think it was what you said, Ingelou. Well, you already explained my title, so I'm not going to repeat that. And of course, one of my first questions will be, what impact are we aiming on? And then I can give a very lengthy story about all our challenges in health, but I'm pretty sure you all know at least a few of them. So for me, I would also like this stage to discuss about you what are our ambitions, what are our missions in health and care. And I'm wondering who knows our Dutch ambitions as part of the mission-driven innovation policy that's started by the government Rutte 3 on health and care. Who knows what are our initial ambitions on health and care? Who knows? Luckily, at least one or two. I was already afraid of that, so that's why I'm also using this audience to tell them to you. So Rutte 3 started a mission-driven innovation policy, and the Department of Health has defined our long-term moonshots. And that is in 2040, we want people to live 5 years longer in good health and to reduce this healthy life expectations by 30%, which is still a very ambitious goal. Of course, these are very long-term moonshots, 2040, so you have to break them down, and you see here the breakdown in 4 submissions. The first is about prevention. The second one is you want to take care of people everywhere. The third one is about chronic disease, and the fourth one is about quality of life of dementia, because in 2040 Alzheimer and dementia will not be solved yet, so this is about quality of life. But these are again long-term missions, so also some shorter-term goals are defined, and that is part of Rutte 4, who has also embraced these missions, so they will continue, but we will make some more shorter-term goals as well. And one of the shorter-term goals has to do with the 1 to 6. Does everybody have somebody heard about the 1 to 6 so far? Exactly. So there's a very nice series of articles right now in the NRC who's explaining this. And what is the main message of that series of articles is the care, in fact, is already there. It's not a future prediction, it's already there. Already right now, 1 out of 6 people of our working force are working in care. And if we just look to the trend, it will become even more, which is simply not acceptable and affordable. And already waiting lists are long. So we have to keep that 1 to 6 or even reduce it. Well, that's not only a problem of the Netherlands. This is an international problem worldwide that covers almost half of the world. So that is the economic opportunity in that. And I already mentioned this policy I'm reporting to the Ministry of Economic Affairs. So of course also she is very interested in the economic effects on working on these missions. And I think it's very easy to explain. If we're able to solve these things in the Netherlands, that's a huge opportunity for all the companies that are involved to also increase their international markets and het verdienvermogen of the Netherlands, which is an important aspect. We talk about not so much the triple helix anymore, but about the quadruple helix, so adding patients, but also citizens very much in our consortium and in our collaboration. Well, a little bit more back to home. What is our ecosystem on life science and health here? We are quite a big player here in the Brainport region. I'm living for 40 years now in the Brainport region, so that's also what Ingelou said with my roles here. So we are quite a player. A large number of companies in Brabant. Also is a very important place for the production of a lot of pharmaceuticals. And also in Brainport, we have about 300 companies in life science and health. We have, of course, a lot of them are legislation and follow-ups from Philips, but also the biotech is increasing. And also in the care, we have quite a strong value chain. And you can see that in the right image, that if you look into the number of vacancies after Leiden, Eindhoven is actually number 2nd in the number of open vacancies in our life science and health domain. Well, that brings me to the 5 transformations. The first transformation is from manual to automated. The second one is basically care everywhere, outside the hospital. The third one is about chronic diseases. The fourth one is about resolve diseases and not doing care and cure and going to prevention, avoid diseases. And the 5th one is global health to planetary health. And I will tackle them one by one. From manual to automation. I think if I look into the audience, there's a lot of males, so you all know the left product, which is the market leader in minimal invasive surgery that's mainly used for prostate cancer. In the warming up, there are a few people that are taking care for our elderly, so that they might know the social robots as well. These are 3 innovations out of our region. 3 companies that are building surgical robots. Left application is eye, the middle one application is skull, and the right application is microsurgery. These products are called robots, but actually they are not. They just transfer a large movement of a surgeon to a stabilized and small movement at the surgery. But there's nothing automated yet. But of course there is a large potential to do so. This year, for the first time, an autonomous robot did a surgical procedure on a pig. Also, and it's also a strength of our region, of course, image-guided minimal invasive surgery is going towards automation, using models, digital twins, and even with AI, you see on the right side of the image that we all know a very blurry ultrasound image. With AI, this can really be like a microscope image. So, Thermo Fisher, watch your market. But also AI is very much used, not so much to automate decisions, but to do AI assistant decisions. 2 examples, left one from predicting the risk for sepsis in a NICU, that's the environment for neonatals, and on the right side, how we can make sure that if we send people home, that we do send home the right people, and how can AI help us in this kind of prediction models. Also, there's a huge opportunity for mental health. VR is used already in quite a number of pilots and validated products where you can treat anxiety and other kinds of fear. And also companies here in the region are active in that domain. Well, that moves one step by step towards the metaverse in health. I'm not going to explain the definition. I only will show you some of the things that looks like. And again, here are quite some elderly males, so I hope my granddaughter will see a different picture when she is in the metaverse environment. There's still also quite a people skeptical about this. This week there was a guru invited for an AI conference. I haven't attended it, but this is a guru from the States who is actually advising you not to invest in AI, but to invest in products for instant cooking, because that is a much lower risk and less a hype. What does it mean for our ecosystem? I already showed some pictures. MTIC, Eindhoven Medic Innovation Center, is really building on the strengths of our ecosystem, combining Philips with 3 of our top clinical hospitals and Eindhoven University of Health, working on fast track to clinical innovation. And that helps, of course, a lot that we are on bike distance. That increased the trust, but it also increased the speed of decisions. And apart from that, we're raising about over 100 PhDs. So this consortium is the biggest medtech consortium in the Netherlands. We have about 100 PhDs, but there are at least as many people in our staff. And as you see, this is not a slide I made for this presentation, but it's a slide from our MTIC presentation. One of the aims is to create a world-class research ecosystem. In this ecosystem, data is key. I can't remember any meeting in the last years in my profession in healthcare that data was not mentioned. And there are a lot of issues to cover. They were also mentioned in the previous session. Not so much the technical details, but privacy, legal, and government aspects. And you have to work on this kind of solution from an international point of view. We all know the EU is busy with that, from a national point of view and from a regional point of view. So I'm quite proud to tell you that in our national data research program of the Groeifonds, which is called Health RI, the MTIC consortium, so Eindhoven, is one of the 8 nodes which is actually acting as a kind of academic hospital. We don't have an academic hospital. With our 5 partners, we are more or less considered as an academic hospital, but we not only want to be as 5 partners, so the ambition of the health data portal of MTIC is to also include companies, government organizations. The GGD is interesting, pharmacy companies, they're all interesting too, according all the rules, help to be helped by sharing data and do joint research. Well, don't worry, the other 4 transformation will be a little bit shorter, but this, I think, is connected nice to the previous topic. Second transformation is from inside the hospital to outside the hospital. Because of this minimal interventions, people can be can be prepared more before an intervention and after. So we call that, and you probably have heard that, hospital without beds. In the future, you will only go to the hospital for an intervention, and the preparation will be done before and after. And the health dot of Philips is an interesting product to do that in a safe way. And if that's needed, the patient is monitored, and a professional can take action if that is needed. This is another example. This is monitoring the vital signals from a baby inside the pregnant female. This is also an innovation from our region, which make it possible to monitor the baby at home and without any invasive procedures. Treatment at home. Chemotherapy at home is already possible, will be more possible in the future, but also other players like the Kidney Foundation are developing on their initiative themselves a kidney dialysis at home, or basically you can also place that at work. So some examples. This also bring in new players, so from professionals to, in this case, retailers. You have here two examples. I tried to measure my blood pressure a couple of weeks ago when I was in the States, but the system wasn't working. But the guy here on the right side of the image does get an examination at the pharmacy, at the retail, just like that. Walgreens, a couple of companies are active there. In the Netherlands, Lucy is already one of the front leaders, and especially the COVID pandemic that helped them a lot to bring these applications at home. And also, we all know the smart watches with all the health information, but I bet that the people that stand up after the question who's doing sports are mostly wearing it, and the people that stay in their chair are not wearing it. So it does not address all the people that might need it. And there are 350,000 of these apps, and they're definitely not all validated for proper use. What does it mean for our business system and our ecosystem? New players will come in, big tech companies, but also logistic companies, because if you want to bring care to home or to work or whatever, logistics is a main problem to solve. I already mentioned the Neo Kidney, but also student teams are helping to build this ecosystem. We all know the example, of course, of the automotive student teams here in the region, and with Lightyear as a result. Also in the domain of biosensing, there's a very international competition set up by the University of Eindhoven that is really accelerating that ecosystem. And these students, within 9 months, next to their study, are actually building a biosensor that is working according to specifications. Well, for me, that was quite amazing. You can wonder if these solutions will be global or local, because our reimbursement systems, and we probably need different reimbursement systems, innovation on that as well, are different quite a bit. So you can wonder if we will have global solutions really for care solutions. And again, data is key. You might have wondered what this fuzzy background was on my slide with the 5 transformations. Well, I'm not a professor or scientist in transformations, but Jan Rotmans is. So this is actually a graph out of his book. And in the middle, he said, there's the chaos. You need that chaos to really do the transformations. So his book is called Embrace Chaos. The third transition, from chronic diseases to cure. I think, of course, that is one. I think something I really get excited upon as well. 2 examples from the region. On the left side, spine stimulation, and on the right side, you see brain stimulation to solve migraine. Also, probably well known, Xeltis is one of the players in the domain of regenerative medicine. That is definitely also a strength of our region. And here you see a heart valve made out of plastics basically, so biomaterials that actually resolve in the body. So this heart valve resolves in the body while there are cells out of the blood flow getting into that heart valve, developing into a working heart valve. And on the right side you see another example, repairing a knee with a gel that makes a surgery not necessary anymore. And also in the kidney, I showed you the monitoring at home, but of course the Holy Grail is much more within the same type of technology, help the kidney to restore itself. And that is basically the next phase that we are working on. A different kind of things like really curing is about gene and cell therapy. So both therapies, you take cells out of the person, out of the patient, that really makes it very personalized. And outside the body, you either modify the gene, repair the gene, and place it back in the body, or you modify the cell in case of cell therapy, and you make these cells attacking, in this case, the cancer cells. I should have put it on the slides, so to be honest, I forgot, but in Oz, the biggest manufacturer in the world on this kind of chemotherapy for cancer is located. So we're really a big player in that. How far are we with that? So gene therapy has been used for the first time successfully in Leiden this year, repairing the immune system of a small child. And Gilead did open a new factory 2 years ago, very close to Schiphol, where they do the T-CAR cell treatment. And as you can see, that is still much a very hand process. And I've been there a few weeks ago. They have already invested over 200 million to make the treatment of a couple of thousand patients possible. So it's quite a very difficult process. Back to the region again, very nice development, and also a startup company that is preventing diseases that occur very often when very premature babies are put into a traditional NICU. Then their lungs have already to breathe air, and they're not prepared for that. So this is an artificial womb where you actually place the baby in. You place the baby in, and then you avoid that the lungs have to work already before they are prepared for that. There's a lot of enabling technology. Yeah, I showed you a number of end products, but there's a lot of enabling technology needed for that. One of the very interesting developments is organ on a chip. I'm pretty convinced that this will be an essential piece in the chain of the development of drugs. Actually, like ASML is a very important, we call it the control point in the value chain of the production of circuits. Organ on a chip might become the next for that. And Mimetas, a company from Leiden, is one of the front leaders in the world for that. And very funny or not, they got awarded a few weeks ago by the Innovation Prize Award of the Netherlands, which last year was won by ASML. So that's nice. But also in the region, as I mentioned, we're more and more active on biotech, and here you see an example about a clue. I was wondering, should I put it in the cure sector? Because curing aging, is aging, is that a chronic disease? Yes or not? But just to tell you about about 2009, the Nobel Prize was won by somebody who did invest about this reversing aging, and at that point of time she thought it was quite simple. It actually turned out not to be that simple, of course, but there are made some progress. This is all about the telomeres, as you see at the down. So this telomeres become shorter, and the shorter they are, the less capable they are to duplicate cells. And they first thought that it was always one way, but in the meantime they also found out that your behavior actually influence if these telomeres are becoming shorter or longer, which make, of course, prevention even more important. In this regenerative medicine domain, this is a complete new field. So there was no ecosystem yet. So I think one of the strengths of our region is then that we built the ecosystem. So this started all at the university. They needed collaboration also with academic hospitals, but they also needed parties to bring these products to the market, which I've listed up here, some of the startups. But that's, again, also one piece of the chain. You also need the production for that. So here you see a couple of organizations that's actually doing pilot production for this kind of devices. And what does it mean in financial terms? These therapies, gene therapy, cost perhaps, some of them are about $1 million. That's, of course, not affordable. So they are discussing outcome-based payment models. So only the pharmaceutical company got reimbursed if the treatment really did work. But I'm wondering, with all our knowledge here in the region, can we make a kind of comparison with the law of Moore, so to reduce the prices of this kind of therapy by automation every 2 years by a factor of 2. So that's a question to you. And of course, ethical aspects play also an important role. Do we want to reverse aging, for instance? Well, this was my question to you. You already heard about that. So the fourth transformation is from care to prevention. This is an image of 6 generations. About 100 years ago, you need Photoshop to put this 6 generation into one image. On the right side, well, 2 or the 6 are not looking that happy, but at least it is technically possible to place them into one image. What was the impact of technology on this? To be honest, quite limited. Only 10% of this extended life expectation is caused because of technology. It's very much to do with life environment, social laws, clean water, and things like that. And sometimes technology can change things fast. Here you see 2 inaugurations of the Pope, 8 years different, completely different experience, but some things change very slow, which is behavior. Okay, so lifestyle, it's proven scientifically that food is important, and of course there are also some applications, again 1 out of the region, that are proven to be effective. And remember, your personal behavior is affecting the way your telomeres are acting. Life environment, as I mentioned, very important. Learning environment, work environment, living environment, and care. Sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. One example from the region, which is the walk. It started at the Eindhoven University, but in Ingelou did also, and you also bring it in here. So I think there's possible to have a walk instead of booking a meeting room with your colleague. You do a walk of 30 minutes or 45 minutes around the campus, and you are back in time for your next meeting. Business models on prevention are hard, but we're working on that, and the biggest problem is that people that invest today have the success of that later on. In Iceland, they have invented already 20 years, it's one of the best practices, in increasing reducing the abuse of, for instance, alcohol and drugs, very successfully and very significantly. So we can also look abroad to look into good examples. Well, what about our Brainport ecosystem on this topic? Yeah, we all know we have a strategic agenda. We heard about it more. We have been very successful to get a lot of money, especially on the last one, the infrastructure. International value chains and talent are impossible. But for me, it's a no-brainer that we also need serious investment in prevention and infrastructure for health. Because the care infarct is already here also in Brainport, and I think not investing is a serious risk also for our economic ambitions. And it's essential to keep the people, also the workforce, vital. And as I mentioned, the win-win, working on health goes hand-on with economic results as well. Well, the last one, from global to planetary health. Planetary health is about the impact on climate change on health. And then health is also meant in a more broader sense. Well, the step from global health to planetary health, you have probably seen, is One Health, but I will not explain too much. One Health is the common health of animals and people, and we all know since COVID how that interacts with each other, and we also know the role of biotech that has been pulled in there. Some figures. The waste of our care in the Netherlands is about 7% of our CO2 footprint, which is a little bit higher than in Europe. In Europe it's 5%, but that is the same amount as in our airline industry. So that's quite a significant amount. And waste is also quite big, and also the use of raw materials. The good news is that today, actually, there is a deal signed, that's signed by 200 partners, including our Ministry of Health, which is about the sustainable goals for health by 3.0. This is about increasing knowledge, but again, also prevention. Of course, the best way to reduce the footprint of care is to prevent that you have to take care, but there are also goals on the CO2 emission and the use of raw materials. And also, perhaps you know it or not, the use of medication and also the chemicals that go out your body via your urine is one of the biggest pollutions of our water system. Oh, I forgot the image I showed you from Maria. That is actually all the waste which was produced during her surgery procedure for breast cancer. Only one surgery procedure. So she made a very beautiful and telling picture on that. The impact of increase of temperature is already visible. Dengue is already spreading around the world. It used to be in the tropical domains only, but it's spreading around the world, as you can see in this kind of images. One nice example from our region, Ministry of Economic Affairs did a call on developing sustainable work clothing for our care industry, which was being filled in quite well. It's not on the market yet, it's not so easy because there's a lot of technology and logistics also involved to work on new codes for our care people. Well, I hope you could follow me. I had only 25 minutes for this whole presentation, but it's recorded, so you can review it back if you want to look it up in more details. These are, into my view, the 5 most important transformations in health, affecting our ecosystems, our business and our society. But much more, I think I made clear that this also relates a lot to behavior, to embracing chaos, to self-care in fact, to ethics, and again, health and economics goes hand in hand. Thank you for your attention.
Please wait.
Oh,
thank you so much, Carmen. We have room for one question. So who would like to ask a question? Here in the front. Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation, very impressive goals and progress. And I would like to challenge you to look even further. How would you feel about the challenge to even look at the 6th transformation, going from planetary to interplanetary health?
Well, we just had a chat, so I know you're in the domain. To be honest, I have enough to do without space. Is that just an honest answer?
I'm convinced that I can convince you later on.
Okay, well,
Okay, well that's a drink topic. Good idea. So give her a very big applause. Carmen van Vilsteren. So, Carmen did an appeal for the Brainport region to also include health. So let's talk about that Brainport region and invite our last keynote speaker of the day. Give him a very big applause, Klaas Dijkhoff. Welcome. All right. Party chairman, State Secretary of Justice and Minister of Defense. Just some of the titles Klaas Dijkhoff has represented in recent years. Over the past decade, he was known for his active political involvement for the Dutch Liberal Party. He won 2 awards for Politician of the Year and even one for Best Dressed Man. In 2017, Klaas Dijkhoff won The Slimste Mens, The Smartest Person. It's a Dutch TV show, very popular. And it happened around the time that he visited the smartest square kilometer of Europe. High Tech Campus Eindhoven. Just saying. Klaas Dijkhoff is a man intrigued by behavioral science to understand and influence choices people make. He even created a company around it called Sue and the Alchemist. And recently he was appointed as a booster for the Brainport region. And I'm very curious how you think we can take the region to the next level, especially since this place is very close to your heart. So give him again a warm welcome. Because you grew up here, right?
Yeah, I did. I was born in Germany because my father was in the military and we lived there. But my whole family is from this region. And yeah, I went to school here in Eindhoven. So yeah, I'm from here.
It feels close to your heart.
Yeah, and it's changed quite a lot.
Yeah.
Keeps on changing. So I think that's one of the strengths of the region, that every time we have built something in the past. It was either it collapsed or it went away, and then we had to reinvent ourselves. I think that's a good starting point for innovation and self-reliance and more autonomy.
So our former keynote speaker Carmen already told about the big investment, right? So it was big news last month. The national government and the Brainport region are going to invest almost 1.6 billion euros in improving the infrastructure of this region. Alderman Stijn Steenbakkers even called it a historical moment. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was when I got this role for Brainport. When they called me, they said, yeah, we have to make a strategy, and it's a long-term idea, and bring the region and The Hague, the political sphere in The Hague, closer together. And then in the end, oh, by the way, we also have to close very quickly a good deal on billions of dollars, of euros. So when I started it, I thought, well, it must be almost there already. I mean, if I joined the party so late, then it must be an almost done deal. But it was far from that picture. So on the outset, there's no discussion on whether or not it's a good investment. Not in the region, not in The Hague. There's even no discussion that you could use twice the money and do great things for the region and then for the country. But the problem is there is a political decision that there's 7.5 billion and we have to divide it. And then it's convincing, but also sometimes a bit of like bargaining. And we went for a 1.3 million deal, but that didn't work. So now we made a 1.6 billion deal.
Oh, it's okay.
Sometimes you have to increase the problem to get a bigger solution. But one of the great, unique things is because later on I also talked to other regions who are happy or less happy or impressed or so well. Brainport got a good deal. They said, but like more than 10% here comes from the companies. They're saying here we'll multiply. We're taking 11% of the check, no matter how high it is. And that's of course a telling sign that it's not asking for money or having some thinking it's unfair. We're not getting enough. No, we just give us the room to grow, give us room to improve and innovate and make the country better, but also beyond the borders of our country with the things we innovate here.
We in our last keynote about healthcare, we heard an appeal to also include healthcare. What do you think about that? What's your opinion?
I think it's one of the. I think we're making Brainport is increasing in size right now. We're making a big step, but the next big step cannot be accommodated in the region physically anymore. So if you see the mindset, the things that are happening here, the construct or the concept of how we do things is so successful that we need to expand. So I think on a level of the topics of the way we do things, healthcare is an essential part of it to apply it to. I don't know, but if I talk to people, I hear like 20 different domains which all need to be like brain-ported. They all need a brain-port treatment, and they all should be here and do the things that we're good at here. And physically, it cannot all fit in here. So I think we have to ditch the last part of regional modesty, and it's not invest in Brainport because it's good for the country. It's the rest of the country should copy this model, and we make the entire Netherlands Brainport. Okay, Amsterdam can remain the capital. Those tourists have to go somewhere, but for the rest, it needs to be brain-ported, and I think healthcare is crucial, and also the innovation is crucial because the 1-to-6 ratio. It's not just undesirable that more than 1 out of 6 people works in healthcare. It's impossible. So either we adapt, we innovate, we accept more technology, or we have less healthcare, or it's depending on your wallet if you can get it, and that's not the country we are and we want to be.
So you are now the booster. Great title, by the way.
Sounds like a vaccine.
not that kind of booster, but can you tell us a little bit more about what your role is, also in a deal, and what do you do now?
I think what do I do now? That's a good question. This role that I'm playing right now, it's temporary and it should not be necessary. But there are a few different characteristics of Brainport that make it more difficult to be understood on the national level. I mean, if you look at history, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, it's a given, they're economic powerhouses, and it's just clear. And then there was this little, well, it's not even a village, it's just 100 years ago that this region went from farmland with a small town to a large industrial area because of cheap labor and cheap ground. I mean, the Philips family first bought land in Breda, where I live right now, but then they heard of an empty factory in Eindhoven, and that's how it all started. So it's not an age-old tradition of looking here for economic development. So that's one factor. The second factor is it's difficult what we do. It's so clever what you all do here that people don't understand it. I mean, if you drive through the country and you see like industrial complexes with smoke out of chimneys, and you think, well, something, I don't know what chemical process is happening there, but you see something happening, and you see, oh well, they make money, it must be good for our economy. If you look at the harbor of Rotterdam, you see containers and you think, well, must be useful, necessary. It is useful, necessary.
But it's very visible.
But it's visible and it's understandable. You know how you make money. It's easier to understand. If you ask people about Brainport, they know ASML, VDL, Philips, and they say, yeah, ASML, they make chips.
Yeah.
I mean, if people think that, let them think that, at least they have some idea that useful things are happening right here. So we have to make it more visible. We have to take it to the lives of people. And I think the presentation we just saw makes it very clear that all the intelligence and all the brilliant things right here leads to better quality of life for people, leads to healthcare, leads to better processes everywhere. And I think we have to make that more understandable and visible. When I was in Parliament like 10 years ago, I put a poster on my door saying that the Brainport region was the second economic motor of the Netherlands. And then they thought it was a joke, because, how funny, yeah. And then they started asking, it's not a joke, it's a fact. And then they started looking into it, so now they're used to it, that it's not just good for the region, that they also have economic activity. It is understood that it's one of the essential drivers for the Dutch economy. Yeah. But it's, well, even for such a small country, distances matter. So you have to translate things that are very obvious here, but not obvious in The Hague. You have to have some kind of translation.
But you see a shift there. You see that it's changing the way the perception from for example, The Hague about the Brainport region.
It does change very rapidly, but it's also it's all very technical what happens here. So you're used to looking at like a spreadsheet speaking for itself, but societally and politically, facts don't speak for themselves. They need help, and they need good framing, and they need a good way of telling people what's happening right here that connects to their lives and their ambitions and the jobs they have to do every day. And if you make that connection, then people will be very enthusiastically investing here or giving room or whatever you need from them, because they feel that it's about them and improving the things they have to do every day.
And what could the Brainport region have done differently? You're good at influencing and looking at behavioral science. So I'm curious how as we as a region could have maybe changed the perspective in The Hague sooner.
They say it's easy with hindsight, but I disagree. I mean, it's also a natural process. I think I think for a long time you also have to just build here and focus, and you don't really need that help. I think there in like the last 5 to 10 years, there was time. Well, it's not lost, but it could have been quicker if the connection would have been made on the content instead of saying we need billions, just give it to them and then leave us alone. We'll make the best of it. I mean, you need some connection. You also need to include. I think because the growth of Brainport has continued, it's easier now to be the leader of the pack and not saying, not look at us, please, just say, okay, we will lead, and other regions can also benefit. and just be more self-aware and more confident in what you're not a regional project. It's not a regional ask like other regions who are. It's not like that's an identity shift as well. When I grew up here, we were from the province. And when I went to Limburg or Drenthe or whatever, you could connect to people because they were also from the province and not from Randstad. But if you go to those regions now, they say, well, Brabant, the cities in Brabant are just the same, well, not culturally, but in wealth and economy as Amsterdam, Rotterdam. I mean, Utrecht lies neatly in the middle, but it's not big. It's perhaps bigger in size of inhabitants, but it's not bigger in economy or what happens here. So stop thinking of yourself as a region that also needs attention. You're just one of the pillars of the country and of the economy, and we're doing things differently. And I think what we can really uniquely tell them that the country now is obsessed with not losing things. We're obsessed with transition and the pains of the transition, which is understandable. I mean, if you have stikstof, what's it all?
Yeah.
So,
Nitrogen. Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Well, that sounds cool, nitro. Okay. Well, if you look at the farmers and all those problems, I think rationally you know the solution, but it's a very tough process because livelihoods, cultures, the way people are see themselves, identities, they all have to pay a price to get through. And so now we're obsessed with, we're also a pretty, mature, to not say old country. Every year more people get out of the workforce than get in. So the country, we have a risk of looking at what we lose. We also are very rich, almost decadently rich. So we have a lot. So if you have a lot, you have a lot to lose. So the country has a tendency now to focus on the things that are less easy or that things that we lose. But here we create, I'm the booster, so I'm a politician. I look what you do and put a ribbon around and say, look at us. I have a PhD in the laws of war, so I'm pretty useless in this area. But from this region, you can say the future. We have a vision of it. We don't know exactly, and some things will fail, some things will not happen. But if you show people what we can become, the things we can gain, that we're not just losing things, but we're changing, we're transitioning. Okay, perhaps some of the things we all know that we used to make money out of, or the things we used to eat, will be replaced by something else. But that something else is not worse; it's better. It's not just a sacrifice for you, but better for the climate. No, it's just better overall. It's also better for you. So if you make that visible, if you make people feel that, and just let them experience it, I think you can be leading in the country and not a regional economy.
So is that the next level? Is that where we want to go?
I hope so. I hope that, yeah, I think that would be great if you're a beacon of hope.
Oh, wow, we have such great slogans in this.
Yeah, but there's so much, there's a focus on what you're losing, but you every day are working on like 20 years from now timetables. You're not working on a deal that has to be closed in the next year, or you have your internal deadlines, but you're looking at the future. Some of you are working on things that you know that the ultimate goal of what you're working on will not be seen by you, unless we reverse aging, of course. And that's a mindset that is very much needed and necessary. And if you can share that, and if you can give people a broader perspective and a vision of that, the change is not just negative.
And do you think also from the national government, is it changing that they don't look at Brainport as that region there, but just something we're proud of? Is that changing?
Yeah, but because it's more easy to be proud of Brainport if you're from this region than if you're from Amsterdam.
Because you don't think you're part of it.
No. And there was like this part that everybody wanted their own port, so you have like Mainport and Airport and Brainport. And in the south of Breda, there's this village, Zundert. They have tree port. You can laugh, but they have better trees than you have here. So everybody wants to be that, and I think now you at least also if you make like bigger circles around Brainport, it's easier. And I think that a few years ago it was like competition between cities within Brabant or the region, and now you see like Breda, Den Bosch, Tilburg. If they could get like the Brainport construct, and then we make it thematical and they get apart, it will be great. They won't have the feeling, they won't anymore have the feeling, oh, we have to compete with Eindhoven or whatever. So make it feel less regional, then it's easier to embrace. And then, of course, the other side of the medal is that people from this region cannot claim it as much.
Mm-hmm.
For now, it's pretty cool to just.
What do you?
One club with Brainport on it.
Good. We talked about football. Great. No. What do you admire the most about this region?
I think like the Baron von Münchhausen tendency to be able to get yourself out of the swamp every time. I mean, also if you look at larger history, but then I'm going to be sentimental. It's not the fact that you have a setback or a blow, but how you help each other get out of it. And it's not just in this. It's like what Van der Leegte VDL did with the car factory in North Limburg in Born. It's just, okay, how can we help? It has to be sound business, but it's perhaps not the most risk-free or most efficient deal, but it's better for other people as well. The ability to share in knowledge, but also share in success, share in wealth, and also think about how you can not just make an invention, make money of it, but how can you make this invention work for the masses, for lots of people? How can you improve society with the things you do and not just improve your own bank check, and then of course with that money you can become a benefactor. But I think that's what makes this region great, and I think that's not just good for the region but also good for the country and beyond.
Mm. I think we go to some questions from the audience. So I already see some hands, so that's good. On the right side, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for this very interesting perspective on the region. Could you also elaborate a bit on the region in the international perspective? So not just The Hague and this region, but broader?
Yeah, I think it's you're admired, but it's also a lot of risk. You're also targeted in different ways, security ways. So don't underestimate your own importance. But also to, I mean, you can steal like an artist, but if you're wealthy enough, you can also buy things. So there are a lot of regions in the world who just want to buy your country, of course they will do cherry picking. But there are a lot of pull factors from other regions to copy this model, and the easiest way to copy is to just buy out half and move you all and continue elsewhere. That's the easiest way. You can build stadiums in a few months and host a World Cup that way. So instead of building your own tradition, so you're now no longer cute and to be admired. You're making an impact. You're big enough to be courted, but also copied and stolen from and spied on.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, personally, I don't deal with it. I think what we have to do...
But as a high-tech company as well.
As a company, I'm not the expert. There are smarter people in cybersecurity than me. But you have to, well, resist some temptations. I use it also. I use this argument also, but then I'm going back to the national level. But in the discussions we had about the investment plan and infrastructure, it is an argument. I mean, it's don't just focus on the things that are tough right now, but also focus on what other people really like to have that you have currently. And I think the ecosystem is more difficult to copy. So there's a lot to be lost by going for the short buck. But on the other hand, I also understand that as the Netherlands right now, we have a shortage of a lot of things. Space, with the nitrogen issues, we have shortage of building capacity, we have shortage of people, we have shortage of being connected to the electrical grid right now, so we have to fix it to maintain what's happening right here, because I also understand business logics that you don't postpone things 3 years because the Dutch government has to get its house in order. So internationally, I think, yeah, you're only admired for a short time, and then you're either copied or bought.
Yeah, thank you.
So innovate out of it. Don't get complacent.
Another question.
Yeah. A couple of times you also commented that maybe we could port this model to the cities or neighboring cities like Breda, Tilburg, or name it. So what, in your view, are like some of the key aspects that can be ported over to different cities around Netherlands?
Good question. I think one of the things is clustering of companies that can help each other around a certain innovation strand or technology. Also, the idea that companies are not doing everything themselves, even if it's cheaper. Saying we specialize, and we on the short term it's cheaper to build things in-house. On the longer run, it's better if we have creative minds in an ecosystem of competing companies, and also companies with smaller companies who are more flexible and agile. In the long run, you are benefiting if they are having a healthy company and keeping innovating, not just for your process, but for the sake of their technology in general. So that's also an element of sharing. Also, a local government that can be flexible. Sometimes it has to be strengthened even, because in the Philips age, local government wasn't strong and flexible. It was just saying to Philips just said, okay, let us handle it, and then the local government, okay, go ahead. So that's also a reason why there's a need for a strong public-private partnership in all aspects. That's one of the aspects that can be shared. And I hope still the human skill, and that's of course when you're increasing, it's more difficult to maintain. But I mean, from a US point of view, somebody told me that the Dutch will never be good at some aspects because we don't work 80 hours a week. I think that's not the Dutch, but it's a culture from a country. I think it's very healthy to not work 80 hours each week and not create a process in which, like, in your 20s, you have like one chance, you have to work 10 years, and perhaps then you make a living for the rest of your life. I don't think that's a healthy model. So I think you can copy that as well.
Thanks. Thank you. Another question in the middle.
Yeah.
Thank you. In terms of the international level, as you mentioned, we have a shortage of workers here. If you compare with Brainport, compare it with Silicon Valley or Shenzhen in China or Singapore, what has Brainport to offer to the foreign experts to come here and work here instead of going to Silicon Valley or whatever? What has Brainport to offer them to come here?
Yeah. First of all, worstenbrood.
And now 80 hours working week.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's very difficult to compare because I'm not in that position. I think there are also very good reasons why you should choose one of the other regions you mentioned. I don't think Brainport can afford itself to have some kind of superiority image. Why it's always better, and there are also setbacks. But I think, what I just mentioned, I hope still that the work-life balance mentality is a bit different compared to like Silicon Valley, and I think that I hope there's still room here for more research for research sake and for the love of technology and innovation, and a bit more leeway before it has to go to market and make a profit. It is essential, of course. I mean, it's not a subsidized environment. And I hope that there's, compared to other regions, but I'm running risk of prejudice because I'm talking about regions I haven't lived in for a long time. I hope there's less steering that the government thinks what you make and innovate is instrumental for their policies. You should use it and accept it. And in government, like in healthcare, is a good example. There are health goals that we have as a society that also are politically set. But then it's please people innovate, use your brains to achieve those goals. And it's not make a technology so that the government can perform their own functions or bake in their own goals or say it's their own values.
Final question from the audience. Maybe you can throw it to the left somewhere.
And we're very close.
Ooh.
We're also very close to Paris. I forgot that one.
Hi, thank you. Maybe I'll forward the previous communication that we were having. Could you also shed some views on the risk-taking capacities of the Dutch investors and, how to actually, because one of the things that you discussed is like cultural change and everything with respect to the US and Europe. But what I've also observed here is there is also different behavioral aspect of the investors and finance people. So what is like your strategy?
What's your experience of the difference in their attitude?
So I was involved with the Y Combinator in the US, and then I'm now having a startup here, so getting incubated. So I see like a lot of difference how people talk and expect things out of it, and that really intrigues me. Like, oh, okay. So,
okay. Now,
I see this as a very safe player region rather than super flashy, or let's say like, let's go for it, let's take the risk. So I'm curious about how do you see it based on your experience?
Less risk taking. Yeah, I think that's true. I think we don't have this idea of just focusing on the rewards. It's high risk, high rewards. I think we can be a bit more adventurous also with government money and government investments. I think there's a change, for instance, with InvestNL is now embracing more risk. Traditionally, it's very much investments, especially public investments, were often seen as like, a bit of the Lightyear anecdote, perhaps. We went for a big subsidy and they ended up buying one car. And we're launching customer. So the government is very at ease with giving away money and then immediately not expecting any returns of it, and is not as good anymore in just saying, okay, we'll invest heavily, but we also want to share. And if you profit, we don't just want the people's money back, we also want part of the profit. So more of that government interference, not in meddling, but in also investing in things that we need for societal solutions, are not sure to raise revenue directly. I think we should have more of a risk appetite for it than previously. If you could turn back time, that the money we made with the gas in Groningen, our natural resources, we should have put it aside as an investment fund, but we cannot do it anymore. Instead of spending it on social expenses, we should have done the social expenses, but then from the revenues from the investment fund. So I think there's the downside of the risk appetite is more difficult to get the money, perhaps. The upside, I think, is that the pressure, if you have it, you get more leeway in doing your thing, and less of a pressure of returning the revenue because it wasn't expected to be as high in the first place. But a bit of a mix of that would be good. I think the private investors in this country are more focused on it. And that's why I think that one of the things you can copy from this region also is also to co-invest, to make funds consisting of private and public, so you can find the ideal middle ground between willingness to take risk, but also when you've taken the risk, giving a bit more room to people to find the best solution and give them more trust and not every quarter asking if there is already revenue to be gained.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And you are now the booster for the Brainport region. What about being a booster for the Netherlands as a successor for Prime Minister Mark Rutte?
Yeah, well.
Worstenbrood for everyone.
Yeah, free beer. Yeah. Well, I have more ambitions in my life than just in one job. So I think I've seen what the job takes. I'm very honest, I'm not willing to make the sacrifice also with the other ambitions. I'm sounding harshly arrogant right now. I'm used to this question, I'm used to answering it, but now I'm answering it in English, which I rarely do. And I think, how arrogant is it to sit on a podium and explain why you're not willing to be Prime Minister? So, well, of course, the only thing you can decide to become is a party leader, and then you have elections, and then the people decide if you are Prime Minister or not. But we'll never know. I mean, my children are 3 and 5 years old, my daughters. I want them to grow up mostly as themselves. Their father will be a bit more recognized in the streets, but if you opt for a Prime Minister, if I would have stayed in politics, they would always be the daughters of, and when they speak to people, unless they take their mother's name, of course, they would also first have to be talking about their father. And in my ambition as a father, I think it's a great responsibility if you decide with your partner that you are willing to raise children. Then it's a great gift if you are given the opportunity. I think in that ambition of fatherhood, that job doesn't fit. So that's why I have decided to leave politics. And it's I also see opinion polls, and they're flattering, but also pretty useless. But some people won't accept no for an answer, so if you're one of them, then my answer is not in the next 15 years.
Give him a very big applause. Klaas Dijkhoff.